Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In today's episode, we interview Christine, who is a marketing and creative startup coach, founder of the Creative Startup Academy, author of multiple books, public speaker, podcaster, and workshop facilitator. Join us as we delve into her story today.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a break. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene, and welcome to another episode of Rewrite Your Life Story. Today we're really excited to bring to you Christine Michaelis from Germany. However, you've got a very interesting story because you're originally from Germany but now reside in Italy. So Christine, welcome to the show today.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Now, Christine, tell us a little bit about your journey before you had some major changes to become the coach you are today.
Yes. Okay, I guess not starting from the day I was born, obviously, apart from not remembering things that happened there. But like you just said, I was born and bred in Berlin, in Germany, which is obviously a big city, and that's good. And there's everything there that you need 24 hours every day of your life. It's now, I would say, very, very different to what it was back then. And I left about 14 years ago. And every time I go back for Christmas, I can see it changing. So it's not only me that has changed over the time, but also the city has changed a lot. And it's not my city anymore. I wouldn't say that. I go there every year because I see family and friends and things like that, mainly for Christmas, maybe in between. I worked in marketing and advertising for more than a decade, thinking this is probably what I want to do for the rest of my life. Because also after school, I did 3 years worth of internships, finding out what I don't want to do, which I believe is very important. And luckily, I was able to do that. And then I found this marketing world and I was like, yay, it's so creative and I love it. And about 12 years in, I was like, it's not what I want to do anymore in my life. It's still important and I've learned a lot. And I'm not a person that regrets anything in life because there's no point. But it wasn't fulfilling enough for me anymore as a job, let's say, something where you, of course, earn money, and do things like that. But it was extremely exhausting because I was working 16-hour days and it wasn't giving me the chills and the jumping around the room. There was a success because you jump from one brochure to an app to a website that you need to create. I had lovely clients, I have lovely colleagues and everything. It wasn't that, but this little was missing. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I still don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think that's completely fine because I believe that you should do something. If we talk about a job, if we talk about earning some money, living, because unfortunately life works like that, you have to pay the rent, you have to earn some money. If we talk about that side, everyone should do something that they love doing, that is really fun. And if it stops being fun, you change. And luckily in this day and age, it's possible. It's easier than ever to change what you want to do. And I also went in a completely different direction. I did some NLP training, neuro-linguistic programming, got a certified NLP practitioner, and they also were offering coaching training. I was, what's coaching? Because all these terms, consultants, coaches, everything floating around. And all of that, obviously, whilst I was still working, because I was living in the UK back then. And I stayed there for 10 years, even though my aim was to stay 1 year. For whatever reason, it turned out 10. And yeah, did the coaching training and started my journey into a new life whilst I had a full-time job, to then transition to a part-time job, to then transition to what I do now. That's a long story, relatively short, packed in what I did. I also started 2 other businesses that I gave up on, where I learned a lot from, and we can talk about that a bit more later, which also led me to leave the UK and move to Sweden. And now, like you said in the introduction, I live in Italy.
Thank you so much. And that really sums it up. But when we were talking earlier before this interview, you had something quite significant happen in your life. And that caused a significant reevaluation of the direction you were going. Do you want to speak into that for us?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Thank you. So it was whilst I was living in the UK. So just to go back a bit further, just to explain why this came out, what I'm going to talk about in a minute is that since I'm 19, so more than 20 years now, I have tinnitus, and that's that ringing and noise in both ears that people have, usually because of stress. Now, it's still not really lots of solutions out there, what you can do. I found something I think that helps for sure to manage it. But I did back then all kind of therapies with oxygen, injections, all these kind of things that you do, thinking, okay, because when you're 19, you think like, no, I don't want to have this for the rest of my life. Turns out you have. Anyway, because of that, I went to a doctor in the UK and thought, okay, I'm going to check if there's new things in the past 20 years came out that might help this. And he said, oh, let's do a scan of your head just to make sure everything's okay with your ears. So we did a scan of my head, which was not nice because I'm also a bit claustrophobic and I had to go into this tube and everything. It was horrible, horrible experience. And 2 weeks later, I went to the doctor and he said, oh, I have good news. Everything's fine with your ears. However, you have a brain tumor.
Wow.
And he said it exactly the way I just said it. Exactly the way I see you now. It's like, what? My head was spinning. I was like, what is this person talking? And he was also using terminology that I've never heard before. I mean, I'm German. I was in the UK. Obviously, I'm fluent in English and I was there for many years. And probably I wouldn't have even understood everything he said, even in German, because it was terms that I never heard in my life, medical terms. So I wrote everything down. And he also said, I can't tell you anymore because obviously it's not my field of expertise. So this is great. There's a doctor that's telling you, you have a brain tumor. And then he says, but I can't tell you anymore. So I wrote down things. I Googled it, which you shouldn't do because every time you Google something, you're dying. And that's what I was thinking. So that, of course, everyone else who gets this kind of message was a bit of a shock to me. And there was a path of discovery of what's happening next with tests and things. Yeah, but just to finish here for now, and then I'm happy to continue. If there's any other questions you have about this discovery.
Yeah, so obviously that is quite traumatic. And you're in the UK, you've left your family behind. I'm not sure, were you with a partner at the time? Were you on your own? What was that feeling?
I know I was on my own, yeah. It was very overwhelming because I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to worry my family. So it wasn't like I picked up the phone and told them what they told me. I picked up the phone and called my friend, my best friend in the UK, actually, who's also from Germany, which I know for many decades now. And I said, oh, I'm dying. And she's like, what? And then we were talking and all these things. And then I think about 2 days later, maybe I did call my mom and just said, okay, they found something. I didn't even use the words that the doctor used. I just said, okay, they scanned the head and they said, everything's good with the ears. However, they said there's something else that they want to look into. So I think I tried to calm myself down also thinking about it rationally, because I was like, okay, if he doesn't know what he's talking about, maybe it's nothing at all like that. But I think I'm a person who's very good at putting things away and ignoring things like that. So I got on with my normal life because I was working. I was at a point anyway where I was quite burned out. Wasn't in a clinical burnout, but I was very close to that. I would say there were also other health issues in family. And I was extremely stressed anyway. So this was just the cherry on top that really made it all wobbly, let's say, the world, and shook the ground under the feet, as you say. But like I say, I was very good in ignoring these kind of things and just get on with life, and then go to all the different kind of tests and blood tests, because what's happening is that it's where the pituitary gland is. So behind the eyes, which is responsible for the hormones in your body. In the spiritual world, that's a beautiful thing. So we can talk about that later. However, that's where they said it is. So I had to go to actually an endocrinologist, which is someone who's looking, also a word I heard for the first time back then, the specialty, someone who looks after the hormones in your body and stuff. So hence a lot of other scans, a lot of blood tests that made me faint, because also I don't like needles. And then all of that for 3 months back and forth, more or less ignoring it and just go to those appointments. However, it did affect me a lot. In hindsight, I can say that, of course. I can see how stressed I was, also how it affected working with other people, how I was extremely nervous and maybe shouting and having all this energy, not knowing where this should go and what I should do with that feeling. On one hand, ignoring it and getting on with life. On the other hand, not knowing what's happening next or not.
Yeah, that's so profound because, it is a whole lot of emotions just pouring in. Obviously, you've come on the other end of this. And how did that experience allow you to reevaluate your life?
Like I said, when you think, okay, who knows how long you have to live? So in the end, just also for the listeners, so it turned out actually not to be a brain tumor.
Oh.
And it turns out that the pituitary gland is a full moon shape rather than a half moon shape, which can have a negative effect, but it doesn't on my body. So the doctor in the end said, oh, ignore everything, what happened? But obviously you can't.
That is so traumatic in itself. And then being told ignore.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like the happiest and luckiest person alive because I didn't have a brain tumor. And in the spiritual world, it just means I'm more connected to the universe, which also explains a lot of things, actually. So that's a positive thing. But coming out on that other end and during those times, I was really evaluating. I was working too much. And I was like, okay, life is too short, like people say, and it's true. I mean, it just goes by so fast, and you do things that you don't like, or maybe you don't enjoy it as much, and you don't make space and time for your loved ones, for example, that also won't be here forever. So all of this then subconsciously fed into my brain and made me rethink. So I was really working 7 days a week and until late in the evening. So I was like, okay, no, I have to make time for myself. I have to take care of myself, my body, to make sure I stay healthy. I need to make time for my loved ones, meaning family and friends. Back then, there was no partner. And so busy from work, especially if you have your own business, then you always say, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. It's funny how you have time for everything in life when you shift priorities. So that's what I always say. And even then, back then, I said, I don't have time for a partner, which is probably why I didn't have one. And then all of a sudden, I've met my now fiance, and you have all the time in the world. I don't work weekends. I don't work in the evenings. I have really strict working patterns that I set for myself because of all of that, what happened. So I made sure I have a work-life balance that I deserve, like everyone else, and have a business that I love and be able to support myself financially. And what more can I ask? I absolutely love my life. I absolutely love my business. because of that experience. And this is why I say I'm not even mad or anything. I don't regret that this happened, because it made me to that person that I'm now, stronger, but also more balanced and seeing things that are more important to me now than were back then.
So, Christine, I know a lot of that has from your diagnosis, hearing about the brain tumor that was no longer a brain tumor, and like having to deal with all those new emotions. That sort of took you on a new trajectory in your life. But what can you advise to people that may not be in that situation? They may not be facing a health crisis, but they may need to take time to
Yes.
re-prioritize and just working too much.
Yeah. So really, the first thing is, like I already mentioned, is that you can change your life and transform and do what you want, and don't do what you don't want at any time in your life. So I think people need to understand that. And it's a lot of times, most of the times, that something like that or even worse happens. Maybe you lose a loved one or anything, so that you make that time and you reprioritize things. So first thing is really understanding that you can do that at any point in time. Also, I would say make sure that you take small steps. And a lot of times people don't even know what they want. Maybe then start with what you don't want. So that's one thing. Make a list if you're a list person, make a vision board with everything that you don't want. And then you can start thinking about, okay, what does that mean? What do I actually want in my personal life, in my business life, in my job? Who do I want to surround myself with? What things do I really enjoy doing? What things don't I want to do? And then think about starting small, implementing stuff. So like me, I started saying, okay, I stopped working in the evenings during the week, but I was still working 7 days a week. And then I said, let's try to get the Sunday back. And then I stopped working Sunday. And then you will see nothing is changing in a negative way for business or anything. But what is changing is that you will be more balanced and you have more time for yourself. So I would say start small, figure out exactly what you actually want, and then take small steps towards that, implementing these things.
What did you learn about yourself during this transformation?
I think it emphasized again what I was already believing, as in also it's your life and you can do what you want. And a lot of things I understood that I don't have to do a lot of things that maybe I thought I have to, especially for business, saying no to a lot more things, asking always the question, what happens if I don't do that? And if the answer is nothing, why bother doing it? Which really helps. I think that's also for personal things. A lot of times I was always this high achiever. I always want to achieve things. I'm getting the kick out of crossing things off the to-do list and getting things done and things like that. So I'm learning a lot over the years, and especially now also with my partner, who's more relaxed, let's say, an Italian person, if we want to play stereotypes, but it's really more relaxed like that as well, and spontaneous. I'm extremely, okay, this is the plan, this is how we're going to do it. So being more flexible, open to things, and also letting go, and sometimes doing nothing is really difficult for me, but I'm learning that a lot. And I love that I learned this also from my partner and also with everything that happens in life.
And you spoke about NLP before, and I know that
Yes.
one of the presuppositions of NLP is the law of requisite variety. Who is more flexible wins. And that's so important. And you just spoke about that. So you spoke a bit about your connection with the universe, your connection with this. How has spirituality played its role or played out in you rewriting your journey?
I think a lot. I was always a person who thought, oh, I would like to be more spiritual, but not knowing what that actually means, because I also think there's lots of definitions out there and things, what does that mean? And I think everyone has a different definition, and that's fine. Everyone should have their own definition, and everyone should be able also to say, yes, I'm a spiritual person, without being someone who goes out at full moon, dancing under the moon and doing some crystal rituals. Because I think a lot of times people think that is that. Well, all my life, I have to say, there has been lots of difficult challenges, beautiful moments, like in everyone's life. But somehow, because I'm not a religious person, it's not that I don't believe in God, but I prefer saying there's this universal power out there. And I know because of everything that happened in life for me, that there's something out there that looks after me and make things work out for me, which doesn't mean that I don't believe I don't have to work for things. So I'm someone who believes in both. It's a bit of a mixture. Sometimes just believe, okay, the universe will work this out for me, and put the trust in there, which is very difficult, but also taking action and putting steps in place to get where you want to do. So I'm a person who's setting goals and follow a plan and know exactly what to do. All of this, I didn't actually know that, because the third eye is where the pituitary gland is basically. Someone told me, but everything you just said is what you went through. It just means you're really connected to the universe. And I was like, huh. So this is when it really started for me to look into that. I always did a bit of yoga, meditation, a bit of mindfulness. But I really then said, okay, let's look into that. And I have some friends, one passed away, unfortunately, that were the extreme spiritual people that you can think of. So they had a beautiful home they created with like a stone labyrinth and crystals everywhere and things like that. So, and feng shui and things like that. So I started talking to them. I started working with essential oils, with crystal healing, actually. Learned about reflexology and using herbs, so all like the alternative medicines, let's say, which I always was a fan of, but never had the knowledge really. And I think all of this was kicked off because of that experience. And someone said, oh, but that means you're connected to the universe. And then I start seeing things happening in my life. And I was like, And even my mom says, this is a bit scary what's happening to you in a good way, because you say something and then a couple of weeks later, this happens. So I give you one example, which is really materialistic, but I'm going to tell you that because it's just happened on holiday. So there were this pair of shoes that I saw in France. Everyone is wearing. Okay, it's like a sandal. And I was like, maybe I should get that shoe because it looks really comfy and I want to check it out. But I want the shoe in white. And we went to all kind of markets because I don't want to spend a lot of money. I just want to see. And I couldn't find the shoe. So on the last day, we were on a beach. Someone must have lost his pair of shoes that were basically new. They were exactly that sandal in white and my number. So we stayed all day on that beach and I put them to the side because they were also really across the beach, one, and on the other side, another one. So maybe it fell out of a backpack or something. And we left them there and waited for someone the entire day, because we spent the entire day anyway, to see if someone comes back to looking for the shoes. No one did. So I have a new pair of shoes that I found on the beach that are exactly my size, exactly what I'm looking for. Another one is that, for example, I lived in Malmö in Sweden, and I went there a couple of months before I was actually moving there. I went to they have basically setup is very different to everything I know. I don't know how it is over there where you are, but there's just one agency basically where you go to if you want to rent a property. And there's not multiple ones or anything. And I went there and I said, oh, I'm coming here in a couple of months' time and I was hoping to find something. And they were laughing at my face and they said, there's a 3-year waiting list if you want anything in Malmö. And I was like, what? On the same day, I had a business meeting mentioning that I'm looking for a place, but it should have a bathtub because I like to take bath, and it should have 2 bedrooms because I might have some people coming over, and it should be in the town center and it shouldn't cost more than this. And she said, you know what? I know someone. In the afternoon, I was checking out this apartment with everything I just mentioned and signed the contract. And these are all these things where my mom says, these are scary things you say, and you're very precise for the things, and then they had just happened.
And it's really that putting your faith and that trust in the process as well is so important. You now run the Creative Startup Academy, and you have a real passion. Startup businesses, but also bringing wellness into that. Do you want to tell us, first of all, where did that come from? Where did that passion to help startup businesses come from?
So I would say, because I also never ever wanted my own business. So I say that straight up, because it's not like a lot of these stories of entrepreneurs that say, oh, I always, when I was young, I wanted to be this. I don't know what I wanted to be when I was young, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was 20. And I didn't know when I was 30. So this, again, I would say happened, and I embraced it and I loved it. So I started to do this coaching training and thinking about, oh, I'm going to call myself life coach because it's great. There's so many great life coaches out there, but I wasn't also very specific. But really from day one, or let's say day two, if you want to be precise, I started working with people that started out their own business, and they were starting to ask me for advice because I'm a very productive person and I get processes done quickly. So automating also things and really setting up the business, and maybe very detail oriented also when it comes to what the law is saying and what you can do and what you can't do. Plus, obviously, all this marketing experience that was there in the back was very attractive for those people. So I started working with entrepreneur, and I absolutely loved it, because everyone who's starting out their own business, and I'm including there also freelancers or tech startups or life coaches, or for me, everyone who's not employed, let's say, this enthusiasm and drive that they have most of the time want to make an impact on someone, the community, or the environment. All of this positive energy and drive rubs off on me and keeps me motivated. And if I can play a little part in helping them to succeed, achieving that goal, is the best feeling ever. And this is exactly that piece that was missing back then when I was working in the agencies and creative brochures. Okay, all of this helps me now, and also the other entrepreneurs. But this is why I absolutely love working in that industry for now. Who knows what I will do in the future? But for now, that's what I love doing. And for 11 years now.
Oh,
Wow, that's very good.
tell us a little bit about your academy, what the programs are, how you help people.
So also this moved and morphed into what it is now over the past 11 years. At the beginning, I was doing one-to-one coaching. Then maybe I created an online course. Then I created maybe a 7-day challenge. And then I had all these different kind of free resources. And then I created even a community. But all of this was a bit loose. And I then said, okay, I'm going to get testers in. Let's see what you think when you go on my website. And let's see when you go into what I already have. And one feedback was, it's so confusing because you have so many things. Because for the community, they had to sign up. Then maybe there was an online course where they can sign up. And then they can sign up to have a one-to-one with me. So all of this evolved into what it is at the moment, and probably evolves further in the future, which is the academy, where everything together. So there's a free level. So everything that was free before is now bind together. You sign up, you get a community, you get a free social media online course, you get a checklist, a 30-day free kickstart your business challenge. And all of this you get there, plus weekly challenges that I post for a specific topic of the month and all of that. And then there's a paid version where you then get also access to all the resources I have created and will create, like online courses. So you want to dive deeper into something specific. Maybe you want quick wins. So there's like 7-day challenges on a specific topic all around these 3 pillars of starting out marketing and health and well-being. So including mindfulness, how to be more mindfulness, for example, how to be happier, all these things that I've learned over the last years. Plus also lives with me. So every week I go live where people can ask me questions. We have a mastermind session. I have a webinar about something, and combine all of that. So people get the full experience of community, resources 24/7 when they want, plus the expert advice by me and maybe others in the live sessions as well. And that's basically what I do.
So, and you running masterminds is so important, because masterminds is all about mentoring people through processes, and Charlene and I belong to a few masterminds as well. What role have mentors played in you rewriting your story?
I would have to say very little at the beginning. If you think about it of, okay, I'm going to belong to mastermind groups, or I'm going to pay someone, a coach or something. However, thinking about it a bit more, there have been people in my life that were helping me, that were my shoulder to cry on, that were people connecting me with other people for collaborations, that they were giving me ideas. And that's also a fellow entrepreneur, for example, and my best friend, because we started our businesses at the same time, went through always the same things. Also, she has changed completely what she's doing. So even there, I think we were mentoring each other. And I've spoke to so many experts also that gave me a lot of advice. And that's also my one thing. If someone would ask me, what should I do as a, let's say, marketing activity, is networking, having a network exactly for that. So because your network can become kind of your mentor. However, I do believe, of course, that they're also offering that myself, and thinking back, it accelerates if you have someone really that helps you one-to-one, that helps you, okay, from here to there. And also that can be a group like a mastermind. You usually have also my other members, for example, and me, and someone comes with a challenge and we all give ideas and ask questions, which already will help people to move forward.
Awesome. You had a really interesting statement there about networking and how network is so important. How would you go about teaching someone about networking who's absolutely afraid to talk to people?
Yeah, it's okay because I'm an extrovert. I love talking to new people. I don't mind. I even in restaurants, I sit down at other people's tables, start talking to them. So I'm that kind of person, which some people like, some people don't. I do appreciate not everyone is like that. And of course, also the introverts that really have that fear, even if it's in a formal setting where you're supposed to network. Because for me, life is a network. Because no matter where I go, but not having in mind this is business, but meeting people, learning from people, maybe giving them ideas and just an exchange, that for me is already network. So I would say the first thing is to take away that fear. If you tell someone, because networking is about telling people what you do, who you are, and why you're doing what you're doing. That's it. You should have not that basis. I go to this networking event and let's see what I can sell today. That's not what you should do. Networking is not about selling. Networking is exactly to create a network, to have a shoulder to cry on, to learn from them, because in the end, we all go through the same challenges on different levels in different industries, to give some value and to have also just a good time sometimes. And I think if you reframe that a bit and have that mindset, okay, how can I help someone today? And how can I show someone what I'm doing and the passion with, because if someone asks you, what do you do? All you have to say is what you're doing and why you're doing things, and they will see the passion and there will be a natural conversation. So all these stiff networking events, if you ever are at a networking event that's so stiff, you get up, you have 60 seconds and there's a bell and you have to sit down. There are these events and there is a place for those and they work. They're not my kind of networking events. If you don't like that, change the group. Find the group that makes you feel comfortable, that you like, that you enjoy. We also just talk about holidays. Okay, it's not always just business talk. So if you start reframing this and know, okay, I can actually change the groups and there is groups out there that I will enjoy, then that will probably take away that fear a bit.
Yeah.
So it's about starting small and finding out where you're most comfortable to start off with. And then,
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. Maybe finding smaller groups, or maybe you feel more comfortable in a bigger group. Maybe if you can find a group where someone that you already know is part of, so that person can start introducing you to the other people rather than going yourself and say, hi, I'm Christine. I love unicorns that dance on rainbows. So if you have someone that introduces you to another group, then that might be also easier.
Awesome. What are some tools that you have found most practical for you rewriting your story?
One of the things, and let's call it a tool, is the mindfulness and meditation in general, I think. And that really helps me also to manage that ringing, the tinnitus in my ear. I would have to say there's certain apps that you can use. I personally use the app Balance. I'm a massive fan of automating things and staying human. So if we're talking about artificial intelligence, I embrace any kind of new technology if I can put my human touch to it and if it accelerates what I'm doing, but not replacing me, let's say. So I do use AI as well, which I find very useful in my business. But having a project management tool, Asana, is what I'm using to manage all my projects because I'm working on so many things. To get into a flow of something, if I want to film videos, I usually plan everything and then I film like 35 videos in one day. And then I do all the editing another day. And this way I'm really in that flow and can go through, because even the setup with lights for filming and stuff is, if you have to do that for a 2-minute video every time, it doesn't work. So tools for my journey is a network, support by family and friends, and obviously meditation tools to stay calm and tools that help me to stay organized in my business, to actually have that work-life balance, to be more efficient. Last thing I want to say is that just because you get more productive, because it's all about productivity and things like that, and people always say you're the most productive person, how can you do that? Do you actually sleep? Yeah, I start working at 5 because I have a partner that's employed and that stops working at 5, and we want to spend time together. How do you do that? Well, only because you're more productive doesn't mean you have to do more things. It means that you can get the things done quicker that you need to get done to then have more time for yourself. So my aim would also be to maybe have a Friday off at some point. Who knows? So I'm working towards that. Yeah. So that's the last thing.
That's awesome advice. And I really love that whole creation, because people do get overwhelmed with everything that needs to be done. And having it is so important.
Absolutely. So, Christine, if someone wanted to rewrite their own life story, what kind of advice would you give them to get started?
Start now, start small, know why you want to do that. So stay motivated. So we always say it's all about your why, also in business and stuff, but it is true, because if you don't know why you do something, you will get demotivated at some point. So start now, start small, know your why. And like I mentioned at the beginning, think about the things that you don't want to do or that you don't want in your life, to then know what you want in life. Because if you don't know where you're going, that can be a beautiful journey, and not all who wander are lost. That famous Tolkien quote, I think. However, if you want to achieve something quicker, know where you're going and find the shortest way to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good to hear. And Christine, if you could rewrite your life story now, what would that look like?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same, because like I said, everything that happened in my life, good or bad, happened for a reason. I truly believe that it made me this amazing person that I think I am. And I think everyone should think about themselves like that. Everyone is amazing the way they are. Things have happened. We all have baggage and traumas and all these things, but that's okay. You can change that. And we're talking neurolinguistic programming, rewriting stories all the time, but it's in your power to change that. And if you changed it to something, you can change it again. So it's not you change something once no, but I've done that. Coming back to that flexibility, I love my life as it is at the moment, and I wouldn't change anything for now. And neither would I change anything that happened in the past.
That's beautiful.
Christine, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and being on our show today. Now, if you want to check out Christine and her Creative Startup Academy, her website is you can go to creativestartupacademy.com, but you can also check out her website on our show notes, as well as all her social profiles on our show notes. Please follow Christine and support her. Christine, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for letting me share that.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. It's just so interesting interviewing Christine, her vast experience of traveling the world and living in different states. And that in itself, we didn't explore that, but that in itself is about rewriting your life story.
That's right. And just that extensive experience she's had, from the health scares to the people that have supported her along the way, and just her own journey, how she's gone through that.
I couldn't imagine being told you have a tumor, being given all these diagnoses, and then being told just ignore that. Yeah, don't worry about it. Ignore it. That just in itself, you need to be resilient just for that as well.
And you can just see that just oozing off her, through the whole story that she's been telling us today.
A few key things I took out of it is I liked her statement where she said, life is a network.
Yes.
And that was so rich, because so many times when we're starting out in business, or if you're starting out to rewrite your life story, you feel that you need to attend networking events. And I know we've had past guests that have said that's not them. But Christine defined it beautifully when she said, your life is a network, and expanding that network within your own life and connecting with people in there.
Absolutely. It's no matter where you are in your life, you're doing some kind of networking, whether it's with your family or with your associates or whoever you are in life.
And her key takeaways was that is give value and have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. Life is a network, give value, have enough time.
That's right. There's one thing that I did notice with her is that she's never been afraid to try something different for the fear of not knowing if that's something that she'd be interested in. She was just willing to step in and try it. That's the key, isn't it?
An attitude of experimental.
Yes, absolutely. That sense of curiosity.
Yeah, I love that sense of curiosity. And I love how she said bulk creation. You know, if you're starting out, do things in bulk and then, you know, spend a day doing something or spend an hour doing something and then bulk create and then get it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was powerful.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.